The snake oil salesman has a long history in America. That isn't surprising. His methods are flattery, pandering to ignorance, and pie in the sky marketing. America has always had a large supply of selfish and ignorant people, and they're easy prey for those tactics. Being selfish makes them vulnerable to flattery and advertising, and because they're ignorant, crazy pitches work on them like magic. The tools have been consistent over many years. But in modern times, the confidence man has expanded his repertoire to include methods from the media and the university. Cue Vivek Ramaswamy and his 10-point sales pitch. This follows the standard model, but with additions from the rhetorical playbook. Point 1 tells us that God is real. This is flattery for evangelicals. It's also arrogance, a common feature not only with fundamentalists but also the far left. And it's ignorant. Most religious people are comfortable with logic. They know the statement can't be proved one way or the other. They understand that there are atheists in the world and that it's wrong to impose our beliefs on others. The claim splices together snake oil flattery and the partisan divide and conquer meme. Next, we learned that there are two genders. This is more divide and conquer. It's also standard procedure for the right and the left. Progressives obsess on imaginary racism, sexism, dingbatism, and grievance mongering. The right focus like a telescope on far left ideology. They don't mention liberal successes, the global class war policies of the last 40 years, or Republican attempts to overthrow our democracy. Number 3 declares that human flourishing requires fossil fuels. This is a pie in the sky appeal for stockholders. Humans have many ways of flourishing, not the least of which is responsible living, and we're discovering new strategies every day. Only Wall Street investors need fossil fuels that badly. Number 4 claims that reverse racism is racism. This is known as circular logic or begging the question. Reverse racism is a term still up for debate. It hasn't been defined or proven, so the claim is false. It's one of many formulas in a Harvard education, and Vivek is not shy one bit about using the whole collection. Number 5 explains that an open border is no border. This one is divorced from reality and wishful thinking designed for populists and low-wage workers. The financial elite are fully committed to globalism. They have no intention of controlling migration. They have an ally in the self-righteous left, and if all else fails, they can fall back on the bait and switch protocol. That's been in place since Reagan expanded the debt. Trump co-opted the issue, then swapped in supply side faster than humanly possible. Ramaswamy's take is convoluted to provide legislative wiggle room if it's ever needed. Number 6 claims that parents determine the education of their children. This is flattery and ignorance. Parents teach their kids at home, and they have some influence on school curricula. That used to be set by scholars and scientists. This was before global finance imported wokeism into the schools. And it'll take a united campaign of liberals and conservatives to reform the system. Needless to say, there's no mention of the financial interests behind the current framework. Instead, we're given a flattering slogan. Number 7 claims that the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind. This is a combination of flattery, ignorance, and divide and conquer. Like all culture warriors, from Chris Hayes to Piers Morgan to Douglas Murray, Ramaswamy beelines to a political extreme. It's worth noting that some people have been harmed by the family, and this explains left-wing hostility. Who knows what clusterfuck of events explain their tunnel vision? The family isn't perfect. Like any social framework, it could use reform. And redefining it as the best thing since sliced bread is zero help. The family is a time-honored structure celebrated by liberals and conservatives alike. That's a consensus we should encourage, as well as a basis for dialogue. Vivek uses it as a wedge issue. Number 8 explains that capitalism lifts people up from poverty. This is another half-truth. Capitalism lifts some people up, it dooms others to poverty and despair. But the statement is just the kind of sugar-coated BS that economists and Republicans adore. Next, there are 3 branches of government, not 4. I have no idea what this even means. Is there a 4th branch that's taking things over and that we should be concerned about? If so, the next item makes no sense. We're told that the U.S. Constitution is the strongest guarantor of freedoms in history. This is circular logic and a pie-in-the-sky conceit. There are many champions of freedom, and the Constitution hasn't done much about the freedom from corporate exploitation. That includes a global elite fighting a vicious class war, plundering the economy, and wrecking the environment. The real guarantors are public awareness and civil action, not a sacred document that's been subverted by elites over many years. Next comes the policy agenda. This is full of the same rose-colored, hyper-partisan BS. There are plans to secure the border and end affirmative action, but no mention of well-paying tech and construction jobs. DEI indoctrination is noted, but not its sponsorship by the global elite. We should restart deregulation and Reaganomics and abolish the IRS. Seriously? This is not just pie-in-the-sky delusion. It's a wet dream for the investor class. It'll be interesting to see if Republican voters will fall for it. They've ignored financial crime and supported trickle-down for some 50 years, so chances are fair to middling. Meanwhile, let's blame the CCP for COVID. This is a common media trick known as anecdote or cherry picking. It leaves out one minor detail. The COVID lab was financed with American cash, so the blame game doesn't really work here. Or it wouldn't if the audience had 2 brain cells to rub together. As an encore, let's shut down the Department of Education and hope and pray that parents can somehow create a technocratic 21st century curriculum. As we can see, Vivek isn't limited to the snake oil salesman's tricks. He includes a generous helping of media and university scams. Trump, Ramaswamy, Robert Kennedy Jr., and the rest are extreme versions of your everyday lying politician. They do have one thing in common. They serve global conglomerates. In recent years, these have filled our institutions with wokeism, conservative culture war, and economic policies too horrible to mention. It's fun to see the snake oil salesman in action, and it's interesting to ID his favorite techniques. These are flattery, pandering to ignorance, and pie-in-the-sky sales pitches. But it's sad to watch his victims being led astray, and it's important to respond to the hyper-partisan nightmare. One way is to begin an alliance of moderate liberals and conservatives. Another is recognizing the many scams of mainstream institutions. Before we can govern society, we must see and understand the full range of deceptive devices at play in the media, government, and university.